Hello guys. Today we're going to talk about literal equations and how we solve them. All right, so you should have a note sheet from the sub. You're going to follow along with the note sheet as you watch this video. Please take notes on the note sheet. All right, if you have questions, you can always pause it and come back or rewind or whatever you need to do. So we're going to start with a little investigation. So we're going to solve the equation on the left for x. They should look familiar. So 2x minus 5 is equal to 12. How do you solve this for x? Well, first you're going to add 5 to both sides, right? And you get 2x is equal to 12 plus 5, which is 17. To get x by itself, you divide both sides by 2. You get x is equal to 17 over 2. Now that doesn't go in evenly, so we leave it as a reduced fraction. And that's okay. My answer can be 0, my answer can be a fraction, my answer can be a negative number, right? So that's what x is. Now we're going to take a minute and solve this equation on the right for x. But I want you to notice a couple things. There's a lot of similarities. Look, in the equation on the left, we have 2x, 2 times x. In the equation on the right, we have mx, which means m times x. In the equation on the left, we have minus 5. In the equation on the right, we have minus n. Now remember, as a reminder, variables are just numbers, right? So n just stands for a number. You're just subtracting a number. And then on the equation on the right, we have, on the left, we have equals 12. On the right, we have equals k, where again, k is just a number. So we're going to solve the equation on the right very similarly to how we solved the equation on the left. On the left, we added 5 to both sides first, correct? So on the right, we're going to get rid of this part that we have in blue here. We are going to add n to both sides. Now minus n plus n, they cancel each other out. So over on the left side of this equation, I have mx is equal to. But then over on the right, I have k plus n. Now those are not like terms, they can't be combined. But I can just write my answer as k plus n. All right? Now, I want to get x by itself. This, again, means m times x. Just like over here, this meant 2 times x. So I want to get rid of that multiplying by 2 divided by 2. Over here, I want to get rid of this multiplying by m. I do that by dividing by m. So I'm going to divide both sides by m, okay? And now I have x is equal to k plus n over m, except for we're going to break up this fraction here, and we're going to write this as k over m plus n over m. Now here's my final answer. That's what x is equal to. It looks a little crazy, right? But I'm making sure that I didn't combine terms that aren't like terms. And my answer is just all using variables, okay? So what's the same about the two processes? In order to get x by itself, I still use order of operations backwards, okay? In other words, I got rid of my subtraction or my addition first, and then I get rid of my multiplications or divisions. What's different? Well, over on the left, I was just dealing with numbers. You know, I can add 12 plus 5. Over on the right, I can't add k plus n. So I'm dealing with variables. But even though I'm dealing with variables, the process works exactly the same. All right? So get out your toolkit, guys. Here's the definition of a literal equation. A literal equation is an equation whose coefficients have been replaced by letters. So pause this, write this down into your toolkit. What is a coefficient? A coefficient typically would be like 2x, right? 2 times x. The 2 is the coefficient, and the x we call the variable. So instead of 2x, it might be mx, like in the previous problem, or it might be ax. A coefficient could also just be a plain old number. 5, typically we call that a constant, but instead of 5, we might have n for k, like we did in the previous problem. Now that we know what a literal equation is, let's try some examples, okay? So we're going to solve in this first example. Give me 1 second, sorry. So we're going to solve ax plus b is equal to c for x. We're solving that for x. So we want to get x by itself, right? In order to get x by itself, I need to get rid of the a, I need to get rid of the plus b. Now the a, this means a times x, right? And then plus b. So which one do I get rid of first? The multiplication or the addition? Reverse PEMDAS tells me to get rid of the addition first. So I am going to subtract b from both sides. B minus b cancels out. I have ax is equal to. Now, these are not like terms. I can't combine them, but I can write c minus b. Okay? Now I'm going to solve for x. Again, this means a times x. To undo multiplication, I divide both sides by a. The a's cancel. So I have x is equal to, and then just like we did in the previous problem, this fraction here, I'm going to break that up into c over a minus b over a. The reason we break that up is because you might actually be able to then reduce one of these two fractions here. Either this fraction or this fraction might be able to be reduced. In this case, it can't, but sometimes it will be, and you will be expected to do that. All right, so do me a favor, pause the video, take a minute, try the you try problem. You want to solve a minus b equals m, and you want to solve it for b. All right. Now that you've tried that problem on your own, we want to get b by itself. So we want to get rid of the a, and we want to get rid of this negative. First, I subtract a from both sides. So I have negative b is equal to m minus a. Now to get rid of this negative here with the b, I divide both sides by negative 1. I have b is equal to, and now, just like before, we're going to split this fraction up. M divided by negative 1 minus a over negative 1. Well, m over negative 1 is just negative m, and negative a over negative 1 is plus a. So b is equal to negative m plus a. All right. So sometimes you'll have what we call a literal equation that has two or more variables. So an equation such as this, 3x plus 2y equals 8. Or a formula such as a is equal to 1/2 base times height. A is equal to 1/2 base times height. That's the area formula for a triangle. That might look familiar. So basically what we want to do is take these equations or formulas and rewrite them so that one variable is a function of the other. Here's what that means. Here's our first example. If we want to take 3x plus 2y equals 8 so that y is a function of x. This is a fancy way of saying solve for y, okay? So this is just a literal equation, and we want to solve this for y, all right? So here's the y, that's what I want to get by itself. I need to get rid of the 3x and the 2. So I am going to subtract 3x from both sides first, because 3x minus 3x cancels out. And now I have 2y is equal to, I'm going to write this negative 3x first, and then that 8 was positive, so it should still be plus 8. The reason I write the 3x first is because, remember, descending order, my plain old number, my constant, should be at the end, right? Now, I want to get y by itself. I have 2 times y is equal to negative 3x plus 8, so I need to undo multiplication. I need to divide both sides by 2, right? Divided by 2, that cancels out. I have y is equal to, break this up, negative 3 over 2x, or you could leave it as negative 3x over 2 plus 8 over 2. But guess what? What's 8 over 2? My final answer is this, because that 8 over 2 reduces to 4. Make sense? All right, here's another problem. Pause the video, you try this one, and then come back and check when you're done. All right, guys, so hopefully you went through this one. We want to write y as a function of x. In other words, we want to solve for y, right? So to get y by itself, hopefully you subtracted 5x from both sides, and you got 4y is equal to negative 5x plus 20. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and I have y is equal to, breaking this up, you get negative 5x over 4 plus 20 over 4, which reduces to 5. So that should have been your final answer, right? All right, now let's do some applications or some word problems. So if you know the area of a triangle is given by that formula, area is equal to 1/2 base times height, where b is the base and h is the height. Let's take this formula and solve for the height h. So I want to solve this formula for the height h. I'm going to recopy it, 1/2 bh, okay? So this means 1/2 times b times h. So how do I get rid of multiplication? I divide, right? So I'm going to first divide by 1/2 because I want to remind you about what happens when I divide by a fraction. Well, over on the right-hand side, 1/2 times divided by 1/2, that cancels out, right? But over here, a over 1/2. How do we divide by a fraction? Well, we multiply by the reciprocal. So this turns into a times the reciprocal of 1/2, which is 2 over 1. Well, what's 2 over 1? It's just 2. So I just have a times 2, right? So this thing here turns into a times 2, which is just 2a. All right, so let me erase all this stuff. So this turns into 2a is equal to bh, right? Now, I'm trying to get h by itself. So I have b times h. How do I get rid of the b? I divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by b, and I'm kind of running out of room. These b's are going to cancel. And I have 2a over b is equal to h. So that's my formula solved for h. Now in part B, I want to use the rewritten formula to find the height of the triangle shown, which has an area of 64.4 square meters. And the triangle shown, I told you that the base is 14 meters, right? So I'm going to plug in the information that I'm given. 2 times the area, which is 64.4, divided by the base, which is 14, that should be equal to the height, right? So there's my formula. I just need to plug this all into your calculator. Plug it in, tell me what you get for h. All right, so hopefully you got 9.2. So 9.2 is equal to h. So this is a word problem. I need to make sure I'm answering the question. It says find the height of the triangle shown, right? So the height of the triangle is 9.2 what? How's this measured? It's measured in meters, right? So the height of the triangle is 9.2 meters. All right, there's another application problem at the bottom, very similar. So again, pause the video, take a minute, and you try this one, okay? And then when you unpause, I'll show you the answer. Okay, so in part A, you should have solved for the width W. Here's W. So to get the width by itself, to get W by itself, we have to subtract 2L from both sides. That cancels. I have capital P minus 2L is equal to 2W, right? I want to get W by itself. That means 2 times W, divide both sides by 2. The 2's cancel over here. But now over on the left side, I want to split this up into P over 2 minus 2L over 2 is equal to W. Why did I split that up? Because now I can see that these 2's are going to cancel. So really, I have P over 2 minus L is equal to W. So that's my formula. Solve for W. Solve for width, right? Now, use the rewritten formula and plug in the information. So I told you that P was 19.2 over 2 minus the length is 7.2 is equal to W. Plug this into your calculator and solve. So you should have seen that 19.2 divided by 2 is 9.6. Minus 7.2 is 2.4. Okay, so 2.4 is my final answer. But again, in words, this tells me that the width of the rectangle is 2.4, and this is measured in feet. Make sense? All right, now that we've gone through the notes, you need to get the homework sheet from your sub and work on that. That's due next class. Thanks for listening.